The good news is the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming very soon, specifically on June the 5th. But there's also bad news. Nintendo has jumped on the gameflation bandwagon hard with a price of $450. For those keeping score at home, that is 50% more than the OG Switch. And there's more. It was very clear from today's Direct that Nintendo learned some big lessons from the Wii U, like that teaching people what makes the console different from its predecessor is a good idea. What might not be a good idea though is charging people for those lessons. I mean, seriously, Nintendo, what the heck? And seriously, Linus, why the heck are you still gonna buy 2 of them? Well, because aside from the bad bits, that might have been one of the strongest console showcases that I have ever seen. We got oodles of details on the hardware itself, new online features, and most importantly, games. There's old favorites, there's some soon-to-be new favorites, and some big surprises. What won't surprise you though, is that as I'm continuing the sentence, I'm already 15 words into this segue to our sponsor, dbrand. If you want to make sure you've got the best Switch 2 case that dbrand makes, the Kill Switch 2, check it out at IamVeryShort.com. While they didn't dive into anything especially technical, Nintendo did confirm a lot of what we suspected was coming on the Switch 2. At its core, it's still a juiced and jacked up Switch, but there are also important quality of life improvements that really set it apart from its predecessor, like a built-in microphone, improved speakers, active cooling in the dock for stronger performance on the big screen, bigger and faster storage, and bringing Nintendo finally into this decade, support for 4K HDR output. Not gonna lie guys, that one's a big relief for me after all those rumors that it would be stuck at 1080p. But now we also know that the tablet got a big upgrade from 720p to 1080p. And maybe more importantly, it is now 120 Hz refresh rate with support for variable refresh rate. These are both huge wins. I mean, with the amount of competitive gaming that takes place on Nintendo hardware, seeing them finally take latency seriously is a giant relief, and especially on a mobile device where frame rates can be all over the place, variable refresh rate is great for perceived animation smoothness. What isn't a win though is the panel technology in the launch version of the console. After the original Switch OLED, I was very hopeful that that would be the end of LCD displays for Nintendo. But knowing that that would have certainly pushed the launch price to $499, I can at least understand why they felt the need to hold off for the inevitable OLED refresh. It just sucks for me because I know I'm gonna buy the launch one and the refreshed one, hence the title of this video. Ugh. Speaking of things you need to buy over and over again, we got a few more details about the new Joy-Cons, including a closer look at the magnetic lock and release system that looks like a huge improvement in function and reliability over the old rail system, the bigger shoulder buttons on the inside rails that will hopefully make using Joy-Cons in landscape mode somewhat tolerable, and the new mouse functionality that, well, I gotta say, I was just plain wrong about. See, in our last rumor roundup, I hedged, okay? In the video, I was like, maybe it'll happen. Off camera though, I was adamant that there's no way Nintendo would take the world's worst controller and then turn it into also the world's worst mouse. But I was wrong. Or maybe I was wrong. I mean, Nintendo, it looks so uncomfortable. You could still just bail. It is an option. Another big surprise for me was the C button, present on both the right Joy-Con and the new Pro Controller that looks just like Gen 1, plus the addition of a 3.5mm jack. The speculation around the meaning of C was rampant, with some folks proposing some pretty cool ideas for it. Unfortunately, we ended up with the most disappointing one. It's a chat button. Yep, Nintendo spent a few minutes showing off their new Game Chat feature that connects players online via voice chat with a brand new menu brought up with the C button. That's right, folks, after 23 years, Nintendo has finally caught up to the first generation Xbox. Speaking of generations, that is so long ago that the 9-year-olds that were shrieking into your ears in Halo 1 literally have their own 9-year-old kids who will now shriek into your ears in Mario Kart World. But wait, there's more. Game Chat will also support streaming your gameplay to your friends. at what appears to be 480p sub 10 FPS. I mean, it's still neat, I guess, if you've never heard of Discord. And you can even buy an optional webcam and add your face to the stream, or even to supported games. Wow, Nintendo also caught up to the PS2's iToy, both in terms of gameplay implementation and camera quality. A big question this all raises for me though is, quality of the features aside, what's gonna become of Nintendo's family-friendly image? Even support for emotes feels like a relatively new addition for Nintendo. With voice chat? Honestly, how many hours are gonna pass after I hand my 8-year-old a Switch 2 for her to hear her first N-word? And I realize that that's a really strong way to put that, but serious mode here for a second. As a parent watching this reveal, Nintendo did show off some new parental controls, but I still have a lot of questions that I need answered before I hand one of these things to my kid. Okay, back to excitement. Speaking of online, Nintendo is adding some GameCube games to the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass, meaning you'll be able to play F-Zero GX, Soul Calibur 2, and Wind Waker on the Switch too. All at a higher resolution than the original GameCube, but seemingly not quite HD, like the full Wind Waker HD remaster that is still currently marooned on Wii U Island. Give us that version, Nintendo. Thankfully though, you'll be able to play GameCube games online with your friends, customize your controls to fit a modern controller, or buy a wireless GameCube style controller with more games looking to be added in the near future. Honestly, pretty stoked for a whole new generation of gamers to get to fall in love with some of the all-time classics that really haven't gotten as much love as they deserve. I'm even more stoked that Nintendo, of all companies, is loosening restrictions on game sharing. Now, even online, in supported games, up to 3 friends will be able to play multiplayer games with you, even if they don't own a copy. That means you probably won't need to buy 4 copies of the new Mario Kart across your friend group, even though, if you're being honest, you still will. And this is in addition to Nintendo's recent improvements to console and family sharing for digital games that we saw last week. Absolutely fantastic. What feels a little less fantastic though is Nintendo's approach to updating the experience of Switch 1 games on the Switch 2 hardware. Personally, I was hoping that I could just play the same game at 60 or even, dare I say, 120 FPS, but it looks like instead these are mostly gonna be paid upgrades on a per game basis. The good news is that it seems like they generally include real performance and visual upgrades, as well as additions to the games that range from exciting, like new DLC chapters, to kinda sorta nifty, like new game modes, to one of the stupidest second screen features that I can even imagine.
Proceed north.
Now I can't be mad yet, because I don't know the price for any of these upgrade packs, and they did announce that some of them will be free for some games. It's just a little frustrating when you compare to some of the other handhelds that seem to be on the horizon, like the rumored Xbox X ROG Ally that I imagine is gonna be capable of the same, if not better performance, for free on every OG Switch game. Though, with that said, I doubt it'll manage the same 2 to 6.5 hours of battery life that Nintendo's advertising. So there is that. And if we look at some of the first-party Switch 2 games that likely you won't be able to yar anytime soon, it may be worth it to stick with Big Red for your next upgrade. The first thing Nintendo showed off was Mario Kart World, the long-awaited sequel to the Karting King, now with a bit of open-world exploration in between your contests, seemingly like Crash Team Racing. It also boasts 24 racer, not necessarily player, support, which seems pretty slick, and it looks better, though not by as much as some folks seem to have hoped, which is a stark reminder of just how much juice Nintendo can squeeze out of low-powered hardware, which makes me pretty excited for the future capabilities of this new handheld, even if the launch titles might not look like that much. Jumping to the end of the presentation, the last thing Nintendo showed off was Donkey Kong Bonanza. It's the first 3D Donkey Kong game since literally the N64, and you'll be digging your way through destructible environments, platforming your way to giant bananas, and punching bosses, all while wearing pants. Very respectable, Mr. Kong. We also got our first look at Kirby Air Riders, a new Hyrule Warriors for the people who are into that, a wheelchair basketball game that focuses on mouse movement, and lastly, what actually looks to be a tutorial where you walk around activating text boxes that tell you about the Switch 2 with some minigames sprinkled in. And yes, that bit in the intro was not a joke. Nintendo wants real, actual money for Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Is this even the same company that put Wii Sports in the box of a $250 console? Okay, so maybe there's not that much on the first party side, which normally would be a death knell for a Nintendo console. But check this out. Strong third-party game support? No, that would be an understatement. We saw, I kid you not, 48 non-Nintendo titles during the Direct, with 15 being available at launch and 21 more coming before the end of the year. Immediate standouts for me were definitely the new From Software game, Duskbloods, a more modern set, multiplayer Bloodborne-esque, and Demon X Machina, a cross between Vanquish and Armored Core. We also saw classic heavy hitters like Elden Ring, Street Fighter VI, now with added waggle, Hogwarts Legacy featuring mouse magic, Hitman, Cyberpunk 2077, the upcoming Borderlands 4, and whoa, Final Fantasy is back! That's right, baby! Final Fantasy VII Remake, let's go! EA and 2K are even porting their biggest sports franchises. We're getting a new Tony Hawk, and that new 007 from IO Interactive was teased. Wait, teased again? Come on, guys, show me some gameplay! We're also getting some indie darlings like Hollow Knight Silksong, which I'll believe is actually coming in 2025 when it's out in 2025, Hades 2, and new chapters for Deltarune. As a big handheld lover, by the way, the quality of the visuals in the gameplay that was shown was really impressive to me, with many of the games appearing to run with noticeably better fidelity than what we've seen on most PC handhelds. There are a couple of potential reasons for this. One is that Nintendo is likely running their demos docked, which is going to give the Switch 2 more performance. And the other is that NVIDIA, the provider of the Switch 2's GPU, just plain knows what they're doing when it comes to efficient gaming, and especially when it comes to AI upscaling. Now, the words DLSS were never mentioned in the video, but looking at what I'm looking at, I stand by what I said. If the Switch 2 doesn't have some form of AI upscaling, I will buy and eat an entire box of this Super Mario cereal with Mountain Dew as the milk, live on Wanshow. Now let's talk about the value. $450 is the price for the base console, and I really do mean base, given that you have to pay for the freaking instruction manual. Sorry, I know this is the third time I've mentioned this, but I'm still annoyed about it. Then it's gonna be $500 for the bundle with Mario Kart World. Now, that's not an outlandish price, at least when you consider its functionality as both a living room console and a portable console. But a 50% price bump versus its predecessor is certainly going to make it a less obvious purchase for many families out there. And that's on top of new games getting a wicked next-gen tax. I didn't mention yet that Mario Kart World sets a new high mark for pricing at $80 US for a digital copy, with the physical copy rumored to be even higher. Now, not every title is going to be so expensive, but this is Nintendo, so it also probably won't be the only one at that price. So if you look at this as spending a whole console's worth of dollars for what is essentially an evolutionary change, the Switch 2 kind of looks like a big miss. But from my point of view, it's been almost 4 years since Nintendo has asked for any money from me for a console, and 8 years since the original Switch. And when you consider that the Switch 2 addresses most of the fundamental issues that I had with the original, which is exactly what a good sequel should do, it's hard not to get at least a little excited about it, especially with Nintendo actually taking strong action against scalpers to ensure that gamers can freaking buy these things and not just resellers. Now, personally, I am fairly irritated that they are requiring 12 months of Nintendo Online, which I don't pay for on principle, because I shouldn't have to buy a subscription to back up my save games. But I still do have to acknowledge that they've done something to ensure that their most ardent fans can pre-order this thing at MSRP. And I also have to acknowledge you for listening to this segue to our sponsor, dbrand. Now, I'm a little annoyed at dbrand right now. Not because their vanity URL is IamVeryShort.com, but because I thought that they were gonna send me one of their kill switch cases for the Switch 2. So dbrand, where is it? Oh, we actually don't have one, great. I am still excited for the case though. I thought it was a setup. One of my biggest issues with the original Switch was the terrible Joy-Con ergonomics. And considering that my hands aren't very big, that's really saying something. Well, the Switch 2 doesn't fix that, but the super ergonomic hand grips on the kill switch look way more comfortable. One thing I was curious to find out is how dbrand was gonna handle OEM dock compatibility. Well, as it turns out, the answer is a totally custom dock adapter with built-in USB 4. Not only does it give you full data and power pass-through, but it actually turns your system into a nice little trophy display. Finally, the latest kill switch has an all-new game card holder. It lets you take up to 10 game cards with you on the go, and it's built into the crush-proof travel cover. Now, I know a lot of us around here are gonna take advantage of our free D-brand products perk for this one. Do we have that? Oh, that's hilarious. But for the rest of you out there, if you wanna make sure you've got the best Switch 2 case at launch, you'll have to reserve yours at, you guessed it, IamVeryShort.com. If you want some more Switch 2 details, you should check out the last video we made, which is more about rumors, but still manages to include a deeper dive into what are the likely technical specs of the system.